Excerpt from The Distance Between Us. The next day, Mila and Papi told us they were leaving in a few days. Since she was a naturalized US citizen, Mila was flying back. Papi, who had no papers and no permission to enter the United States, would have to hire a smuggler to take us across the border. I'm not going back there, kids, Papi said. I have a new life over there, and I don't want to give it up. But I know it isn't fair for you to not have a father. I thought your mother was taking care of you. Now I know she isn't. I grabbed Mago's hand. She was my little mother. Even if Papi and Mani didn't want us, at least my sister did. Mago squeezed my hand tight. Take us with you, Papi, she said. If you aren't coming back, then take us with you. I don't have enough money to take all of you with me. I can only take one of you, Papi said. I kept my eyes on the ground, afraid to look up. Tears gathered in my eyes because I didn't want to hear what Papi was going to say next. I knew who he was going to choose. I squeezed Mago's hand more tightly, afraid Papi would yank her from me. I'll take Mago with me. She's the oldest, and she won't have any trouble running across the border with me. You can't take her, I said. You can't take her. Why not? Papi asked. Because she's all I have. Mago looked at me and put her arms around me. I held tight. I had survived being left by Papi. I'd lived through Mommy's constant comings and goings. But if Mago left me too, I didn't think I could survive that. I looked at my father and wished he hadn't come back. I wish he'd stay where he was. I wish he was just a photograph hanging on the wall. I would prefer that than to lose my sister. Why did he have to come back, only to leave again and take away the only person who truly loved me? And what about me, Papi? Carlos asked. I can run really fast. Just ask my friends. They can never touch me when we play soccer. I'll leave La Migra in the dust. Papi put his hands on Carlos's shoulders. You're right, Carlos. You could probably manage the crossing as well as Mago. I'll take you with me, but you, Chata, I cannot. How could you split us up? I asked. How could you take them away? How could you leave me behind? I don't want to separate you, Papi said, bending down to look at me. I will come back for Chata. I promise that as soon as I have enough money, I'll come back for you. I shook my head, unable to believe him. The last time you left, you were gone 8 years, Papi. Papi looked down and didn't say anything. When we were at Abuela Elvia's house after school, Papi and Mila were sitting on the patio with my grandmother. He called us over, and I was the first to rush to his side. Papi, you have to take me to El Otro Lado with you, I said to him. What is that? Because I told my friends you would. And I've said goodbye to all of them, I blurted. I'd die of shame if they know I lied, Papi. Please take me with you. Papi laughed. Mila didn't laugh. She glared at me. She's a stubborn one, isn't she? Mila said. You leave her here with me, Natalio, and I'll teach her some manners, Abuela Elvia said. This girl needs to learn that bad things come to women who don't know their place. I won't go with you if you don't take Reina, Margot said. I mean it. Me too, Carlos said half-heartedly. All right, then in that case, I'll take all my children back with me. But where in the world are you going to get the money? Mila said. We'll borrow it, he said. Beg everyone we know. He said he'd call his friends and beg them to lend him the money he needed to pay the coyote, the smuggler, who would sneak us across the border. He said it was a good thing Betty was a U.S. citizen and wouldn't need to be smuggled into the country. She could fly with Mila on the airplane. For a moment, I felt the familiar jealousy I'd felt when I first heard of my American sister. Being born in the United States was a privilege I wish I had. We took a bus from Iguala to Mexico City, where Mila would be getting off to catch her bus back to El Otro Lado. From there, Mago, Carlos, Poppy, and I will continue our journey by bus. The trip would be a little over 2 days. At first, it felt like an adventure. I couldn't peel my eyes from the window. By the next morning, I was already fidgety and complaining from sitting for hours on end. Except for Poppy. We were all suffering from motion sickness. We weren't used to riding in the cars. I wondered how many mountains we would have to cross to get to El Otro Lado. Poppy checked us into a small hotel. There was only a full size bed, a night table, and a dresser and a television in the room. Poppy said we three could have the bed. I'll sleep on the floor, he said. The floor was tiled, and I knew it would be uncomfortable to sleep on. But he said a bigger room costs more, and with any luck, we will only be here for one night, he said. He left us there to watch television, and he went out to search for food and a coyote, the smuggler who would take us across. The smuggler picked us up before sunrise at the hotel and drove us across the city. I was sleepy, and I found myself struggling to stay awake. The sun was just coming out when we came to a stop. We got out of the car and looked around. The border turned out to be nothing but dust and bushes and rocks and weeds under a light blue sky. This is where we start, the coyote said. He looked at me and said, "Try to keep up, okay? You don't want to be left behind, do you?" I looked at Poppy. My stomach clenched at the thought of being abandoned in the middle of nowhere.